to Y2B Fit Talks, where we dive deep into the world of fitness, health, and wellness. Join us as we have heart-to-heart conversations with members of our vibrant boutique fitness studio right here in the heart of Philadelphia. Discover how our unique approach helps our clients build consistency and discipline for long-lasting health and well-being.
Welcome back.
Well, welcome too.
Yeah.
We're here again.
Continuing our talk about how we started, why we started, who we are.
And a little bit more concise now because we're going to be talking about kind of rebranding fitness in how we view it. And actually, this is based upon a lot of different conversations that Crystal and I have had over years, and built on philosophies that we've studied and belief systems that we've put in place with our own fitness practices. So we're going to call this one Rebranding Fitness.
I like it.
So we don't think, or we kind of agree on this, but we don't think fitness is so broken, right? It's done an amazing amount of good for a lot of people. But I think in starting Y2B Fit, we decided it needed a little bit of an upgrade, a rebranding, so to speak. And fitness is generally very young as an industry. I mean, it was only with our parents' age that, they started actually going to the gyms and working out and things like that. And now it's kind of really evolved and exploded as an industry. And we're going to take some steps back with this rebrand and to look at the past of what has been done in movement and fitness and try to apply some of the things that have maybe worked for thousands of years, even before the industry started, and bring them to the present day and give you our take on our beliefs and what we practice. So first and foremost, this all kind of came about because we believe that we need to reframe our thinking around it, around what fitness is, what it can do for someone. And the reason being is we see a lot of people come in and doing and trying this thing and not being successful.
Right, because their view of fitness is that it's a means to an end, right?
Tell me about that.
Well, it's, usually they come in with the intention of they have to lose weight, or they have to gain mobility, or they have a specific, event that they're working towards where they, want to look good, or they, want to run a 5K, or they have some specific goal in mind. So it's like a means to achieve that. People think of fitness as a means to an end, as opposed to a lifestyle practice, right? So, they come in with the intention of I want this outcome. I want to lose weight. I want to fit into these pants. I have this event coming up. So that's what they're looking to achieve, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then fitness is their means to get to it.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to instill in people that fitness is more than an outcome. It's really a way of life, right? It improves our health and our longevity. It prevents a lot of diseases and helps to make us feel good mentally as well as physically. Especially, if you work a sedentary job where you're sitting all day, it feels good to move your body. And that's what a lot of people say after they do move, oh, wow, I didn't realize how stiff my body was or how much I needed to move.
I think in all my conversations, the number one objective of people, and I wrote this down, is to feel better about themselves. And that's the top of the pyramid, right? But there's a disconnect, and almost every client says this. Somewhere in between, I just want to feel better. I just want to feel better.
Do you think that they want to feel better physically, or do you think that they're thinking of it more if they look a certain way, they'll feel better?
I think it's very much when people come in, generally speaking, it's some very surface level things, right? It's this, I need stress relief. And I've heard exercise does this, right? That's just, and maybe I want to be a little bit healthier. And that's what they start out with.
Right.
But a lot of times stress relief that doesn't, depending on the environment, that doesn't happen because it's more as we've known, in these environments can be very much stress producing.
You mean fitness environments?
Yeah. I
Yes,
mean, think about, I've worked in the gym industry, and um, the nervousness of people walking into a strange place
True.
with all this funny equipment that is from somebody coming in for the first time and not knowing what they're doing. You're sold into something that you're like, I don't know if this is going to be it, and you're motivated into it, and it's like, how do I do this?
Yeah.
You know, what if I do it wrong, or how much of this and how much of that, and everything like that. And the one descriptor I use is I relate it to reading. So imagine going in to, you don't know how to read, and you go into first grade and they give you a 12th grade textbook, and they start going through things and going through high level stuff. You're not going to understand it. You're
Right.
not going to feel comfortable whatsoever. And even people that are in shape, I remember my first gym experience was at a racket club, and I was in great physical shape, but I didn't know how to use the equipment. I just played sports my whole life. I didn't know what a chest press was, or what I should be doing, and how much of this and how much of that. I didn't know.
Right.
So, even somebody that was in shape needed that understanding and knowledge and develop as a reader almost. So I think when people first come in, one of the best things that we can do is kind of reframe everything and give them, help them with their expectations,
Mm-hmm.
help them with their understanding of what this is going to look like, and understand where they're starting out in a much better way than has been done, in the past.
Well, that's right. You meet people where they are, right?
Mm.
As opposed to like trying to have them come up to where you are. You're meeting them where they are.
And I think a lot of places are not equipped to kind of handle that.
Right. Well, I mean, I've been in a lot of gyms that just aren't super friendly.
Mm.
I mean, people say hi at the front desk. It's not like they're rude, but like there's no one really there showing you how to do things.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like you kind of walk in and you have to figure it out on your own. And you may or may not be doing it correctly. And maybe even like you read things on the internet of like, oh, you should do these exercises, but you don't know if you're doing them right. And then there's always like are you using enough resistance? Are you using the right tempo? So there's so much that goes into it that like when you're doing it on your own that you might not figure out.
Mm. So this kind of brings us to yoga, and kind of based upon our philosophy and where kind of we're coming with that. And yoga, in our reading and understanding, is a practice. And that's such a beautiful word. And what a practice is and means, in my view, is really a practice requires patience with ourselves if we want to improve. So as we kind of practice our practice, we get better and deeper into it. And it doesn't mean that you need to achieve this result in 6 weeks. It just means that you're going to be doing it. And eventually, as your practice deepens, you get there.
Right. And it's like if you're relating it to yoga, it's interesting to think of like yoga, there's a practice on the mat and off the mat, right? So it's kind of like there's fitness when you're in your actual workout, and then there's also work to be done outside of the actual workout, right? So it's like that idea of on and off the mat yoga. It's like continuing to have patience with yourself, in the day to day, and also, doing the things outside of working out that help you to achieve health, right? Like how you eat, how you approach things in your life, like how you approach stress, right? A lot of stress is caused by our reaction to it more so than what actually is happening to us.
Mm-hmm.
And in that practice, off the mat, we can kind of learn to change our approach, which kind of comes to that whole idea of lifestyle.
So one of the things, and maybe we'll go into a little bit about this, but kind of your background in yoga and my beginning background in yoga, and how we take this practice and help our clients progress, and give them a framework, and the expectations and understanding of what this is going to look like as they start to progress their practice. So tell me a little about how you discovered yoga, and then we'll start to relate that to kind of fast forward to how you use that in your own fitness practice.
Okay.
Movement practice.
Yeah. So discovered yoga. I think I discovered yoga as, I don't know, preteen or young teen. Yeah, well, at my friend's house, her mom had yoga VHS, I think. I think it was VHS. It wasn't even DVD.
Oof.
I know I'm dating myself. But yeah,
I would date you.
thanks. She had yoga VHS. And it wasn't like something that was super popular at that point. I guess it was like the mid to late 90s. I'll just be out with it.
90s are in.
Right. And yoga was kind of like on the fringe. So to me, it was like, oh, really interesting. And I remember after we kind of encountered the video, we were, really into it. And we started getting yoga books out of the library and kind of reading about yoga philosophy and like practicing the poses. I had no idea what I was doing, but it seemed cool at the time. So that was kind of like my intro to yoga and what got me interested in it. And then I got more into it. I took yoga as my fitness class in college.
Nice.
So that was probably, I think it was the summer between my first and second year of college. I took that, which really inspired me into kind of making it a daily practice of my own. Because after that, I started taking yoga classes.
And what was the hook there? What kept you coming back?
For me, it was because yoga was more than just a physical practice, right? There was so much more to it. There was always like deeper layers to uncover. It was like this big onion, right? And the physical practice was like just peeling off the first layer. And I guess I really liked the way it made me feel, not just physically, but mentally. Like it helped me to feel really calm when I was doing it.
With all the breathing and
With the breathing, and also like, yes, like there was like physical movement to it, but it didn't require a lot of output from me because it required me to be quiet and to kind of turn inward more so than like talk and like produce.
Yeah.
You're just encouraged to kind of just be.
Yeah, I remember my first experience, and it was in my 20s, and we were rock climbing at the time, and somebody said, "Hey, do you want to go to a yoga class?" And I said, "Sure." So the first time we went, it was the weirdest thing because I was like, "Yeah, this is my first time and everything," and I tried to do all this stuff and muscle through things because that's what, with a lot of ego that I did. And what happened, I got done the end of it, I'm laying in Shavasana and I'm like this, and I got up and I'm like, whoa, I'm pretty lightheaded here. And like, it felt like I was like almost drugged because I had done so much breathing. They were like, breathe. I'm like, I'm breathing. And I breathed so much in that class that I just had so much oxygen in me. I literally felt lightheaded. And I was like, wow, I was like, this is pretty cool. Being the 26-year-old, kind of guy, I was like, this is pretty cool. Like yoga gets you high, right? And that was my first introduction to yoga. And then I did a lot of other things, but I didn't really kind of get back to it. And I didn't go deep into it. And, fast forward to now, which I'm in yoga teacher training, and not that I might ever teach, but maybe, but that's I believe, the way that you deepen your practice, because it's so much more encompassing and you learn more about it, and it informs, I believe, like kind of the whole movement practice. And this is the thing that, we try to, kind of teach our clients. So it's within my practice that I'm doing these things that hopefully I can impart, these lessons and help my clients, develop their own movement practice. So.
Are you wanting to take your fitness journey to the next level? Look no further than Y2B Fit, Philadelphia's premier boutique fitness studio. With our personalized training programs, you can achieve your fitness goals, whether you're recovering from an injury, preparing for an event, or simply aiming to move your body better. Our experienced trainers will create a program tailored to your needs and lifestyle. But that's not all. Our group fitness classes offer an array of high-energy options, from bar and TRX classes to soothing yoga flows. With multiple instructors and weekly class times, you're sure to find your new favorite way to work out. Don't wait any longer to transform your health and well-being. Head over to Y2B Fit's website at www.y2bfit.com to learn more and become a member today.
Here's a really good question. It's a great question. What can yoga teach us about our own movement or fitness practice?
Well, I think yoga teaches us about self-discipline, right?
Hmm.
It's like in yoga, you're encouraged to create like a daily sadhana or practice, right? And that practice doesn't have to be an hour like in a studio. It can be 5 minutes. It doesn't even have to be physical. It can be just breathing, or it can be like some other form of yoga. So I think it teaches us to show up, right? Like, because in yoga, like, it's really about showing up and
presence.
So when you're in your practice, your movement practice, whatever it is, whether it's yoga or it's weight training or it's cardio, it's really about showing up, like, for it, even on the days when you don't really want to, because there's always days where your motivation's low, right? And that's kind of where self-discipline takes over. So it's about, like, you decided this was something you wanted, so committing to it as a daily practice. And then also, like, being present when you're in it, because a lot of times our mind is, in yesterday or in tomorrow. It's not like in the workout when we're in it. So reminding ourselves, like, continuously sometimes, that I'm here right now.
Do you think a lot of people miss that in actual, like, training in here and just in their their fitness in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think people in general don't think of fitness the same way they think of yoga if they do yoga too, right? Fitness is more of like a physical activity. But in yoga, we're taught, like, how we, like, approach one thing is how we approach everything. So if we're approaching our yoga practice mindfully, or are eating mindfully, it would lend itself to also approaching, like, our physical activity mindfully. And that means, like, listening to your body in the moment. Like, if something doesn't feel good, not continuing with it. And maybe there's a little tweak you need to make, right? Like, maybe you need to move your leg out 1 inch more when you do your lunge, because where you have it placed, it just doesn't feel right.
And because we're listening and we're present, we're able to make that right. And I think a lot of fitness that I've experienced is very much not being present, because you're focused on, well, how many calories did I burn? Is the class almost over? And this exercise is really tough, and I forgot these 3 things from work, and blah, 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 blah. Right. And it just keeps going on and on and on. And there's an amazingness that happens when we become present in that. And part of that presence is realizing, like, oh, I suck at this, or I am not good at this at all.
Or, like, this is really hard for me.
Yeah, like, I can't do this. And then saying, well, give it a try.
Yeah.
And beautiful things might turn out.
It's like being present for the challenging parts, right? A lot of times, like, as something gets hard physically, we try to take our mind somewhere else, right? Like, I have to, like, grit my teeth through this because I have to get to the end, like, to make my workout hard enough. but it's really more about like just being present and like enduring like the experience, right? Like feeling when things are hard. We tend to avoid challenges mentally, right?
So in your movement practice, where have you experienced this
What
most?
challenges?
Yeah. With how has this mindset helped you in your movement practice with, say, bar or strength training or any of those things?
Well, I think one, like showing up, right? Like that's kind of some of it for me is like this is part of my practice. Like this is part of what I do,
Mhm.
you know? Um, and being in the moment when things are hard, like recognizing that they're hard, and then also like deciding like, is it hard enough that I need a break? Or is it at a point where I can like endure this and keep breathing through it? Because I find that there's not much physically that my breath can't help me through if I really focus on my breathing.
Hmm. Yeah, I find myself quitting sometimes in bar class because I'm like, oh, I'm at my limit, but then I'm like, wait a minute, I wasn't.
Hmm.
I should have went a little bit further, and let me correct that on the next one. Let me figure that out on the next one.
Well, I read an interesting quote, and I don't know who it's from, but it was like your mind gives up when you still have about 40% physical energy.
Hmm.
So like, I always try to remind myself of that. So I'm like, okay, my mind's ready to give up, but I still have like 40% of my energy left. So I have to keep pushing a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that helps me in determining like, do I really need a break? Or is it just my mind that's like, no, you should stop? Because, I mean, you're trained to conserve energy, right? Like, you don't want to push yourself that far.
Yeah, there's always this give and take and kind of fight with the brain because our brains like to keep us safe,
Yeah.
neurologically speaking.
Right.
And this is not something that's safe because it's making us really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think based upon that, we get into the resistance. And one of the things where yoga can really inform our movement practice is that that resistance, when we feel it, yoga can help us say, okay, well, you did it last time, this is what you're committing to, and this is your practice, and you're going to deepen this, and this is what is important to you. This is what's going to make you feel better. And that's where all this good stuff starts to come in, rather than say, well, you know what, I'm not going to do it today.
Right. And what I always like about yoga is like the idea of it's like getting comfortable with discomfort, because a lot of yoga poses are slightly uncomfortable, right? I mean, you never want to push to like a point of like pain, but like it's like allowing yourself to be comfortable in that slight discomfort. And that's where your breath comes in, right? Like you get into a certain pose and you're like, I could stay here, but I'm not sure if I like it. But your breath can kind of take you through it. It's like that balance of effort and ease, right? You have to like straddle it.
Now, on the other side of things, as you started getting more and deeper into yoga, what, besides the stress relief and a couple other things, where did the other benefits start to come in?
I feel like in general, yoga benefits like mind and body, right? I mean, so definitely lots of mental benefits, but physically, like I feel like it made me much stronger for other things in ways that I didn't really think that it would.
For instance?
Um, I think like I, I I think that it I don't know this for sure, but I think that it like strengthens your fascia, and I think that it also like in your joints, um, because I find that when I go into new movement practices, like my mind body awareness is much stronger to the point that like I pick things up quicker.
It's kind of like muscle memory, but that's not like a real term, so to speak.
Like proprioception.
Yeah, that's the term. There we go. But nobody can say that. I can't even say that. Okay. And with yoga, what frameworks have you taken and applied to your movement practice that have really helped you become consistent?
What do you mean by frameworks?
Like your breath.
Mm.
Like your commitment to it.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think the idea of like a daily practice or daily sadhana, as you would say it in yoga, is a good one because it's a reminder of like this is something you do every day,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not something that like you just do some days or you do when you feel like it. Like this is something that I do for my own physical and mental well-being. So I think that's definitely something I've taken into like my regular movement practice because like I don't do like physical yoga asana every day anymore, but I try to do some type of physical movement practice, right? Um, and then obviously like the breath awareness because I'm always like focusing on like when am I inhaling, when am I exhaling, like am I breathing?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a lot of people don't breathe when they exercise. One of the first things we do when an exercise gets hard is we start to hold our breath.
Mm.
So, and you see like when you tell someone to breathe, they're like you see like this ease come over their face. And then also like they're experiencing the challenge more because they're not holding it with their breath. They're not like holding all this tension in their body. They're letting themselves kind of relax into the movement. And that's where like, you know, yoga's about effort and ease, and the ease comes from your breath. And you kind of see that ease wash over someone when they start breathing. So I think definitely breathing and then also like mind body awareness, which I think comes from breath, but like just always being aware of like what is my body doing right now? So like not trying to rush through it, you know, taking it nice and slow.
Mm.
Like your workout doesn't always have to be fast and really sweaty for it to be effective. Sometimes like doing the movements really slow can be even more powerful because you're engaging all the muscles and you can feel them engaging. Like I really like that.
Mm. I like that. I think it gives us time to kind of go in and figure those things out. That's also, on a side note, it's why we don't have mirrors in here.
Yeah.
Because we don't want people looking outward. We want them looking inward. And when you start to look at a mirror, that mirror is kind of telling you, you know, if the mind runs wild a little bit, it's telling you this or telling you that, or this looks, and really we should be looking inward, asking ourselves, how do I feel in this movement? Am I breathing right in this movement? And that felt good, or let me change that, based upon what's going in on the inside, rather what's coming, what we're looking at, and is getting reflected back to us.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I've been in gyms and fitness classes with mirrors and I mean, I get really distracted by the mirror. I'll be like, "Oh, I don't like the way my shirt looks," or "I should have worn something else," or like, "Oh, is there food in my teeth?" Or like then I'm like looking at other people in the room like, "Oh, do they know how to do this the right way? Like, how do I look compared to that person? Am I doing this right?" And then I'm not really like feeling the workout anymore or like focusing on anything.
Present.
No, not at all. Not in the experience anyway.
And that kind of leads to another thing, and it's this great quote that I repeat a lot, and it's like, comparison is the stealing of joy, or the stealer, or something
Thief.
like that.
The thief.
Better word. And you know, when we're in these workout classes in these gyms, a lot of times that's like the first thing where our mind goes to a lot. And I think when you go into a yoga practice or a yoga studio, and if you've done yoga before, it's this, yoga's for everyone. Everybody's accepted.
You don't have to look a certain way. You don't have to know how to do yoga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in what happens is it's just they're like, and it's reiterated again and again and again, so much that you're like, okay, I get it. But it's like, it's your practice. They say it. It's like, it's your practice. So that is something that we try to help our clients with.
Yeah.
Is like, this is your time. It says it. This is your hour. It says it on a little board over there. This is your practice. You know, kind of like make the most of it.
Yeah. How are you going to use it? Are you going to be present for it?
Yeah. And so many times, one of the things that I know you like to do a lot and that I do also is we'll cue, like, how did that feel? Or what did you feel? Where did you feel? And those questions you have to ask yourself and take a step back and be like, oh, well, some people are like in the beginning, they're like, I didn't feel anything.
Yeah.
and because they're not being present in the moment. And then they're like, wait, I feel this pull right here, or this feels tight right here. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's where you should be feeling it. We're doing a deadlift,
Right.
right? So we've tried to take a lot of these little things that we've done and just add them into regular working out so people can make those connections.
Right.
I believe yoga has some amazing frameworks because it's been used for thousands of years before even fitness existed.
Right.
And something's been around for thousands of years and people keep doing it more and more. It has some staying power. And usually when I try to see, hey, like what works, what doesn't, you check the fruit on the tree, right? Does it have a lot of fruit there? And like people's lives have been transformed by yoga. And it's like, well, it's just movement, whatever. But no, there's a lot going on there. I think if we were going to rebrand fitness, I think that I'd call it a movement practice. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I like that. Because it makes it so it doesn't have that quick results feeling anymore, right? It's a practice. So, a practice doesn't usually lead to an end result because we have to keep practicing to keep getting better.
One of the questions I always ask clients is, well, in the beginning, it's more of a statement. I said, okay, now one of the goals is you're probably going to have to do this for the rest of your life in some form or another. And if that's the case, if that is to be true, then how will that inform your workouts? And they're like, oh, well, maybe I won't go as hard sometimes. Oh, maybe I'll listen to myself more when I'm not feeling right. Doing something different, like maybe going for a walk rather than do this hard, leg session. That's going to be an hour of my time.
Right.
Because again, it's about the process and the practice of it and doing it for the rest of our lives rather than the result. And I have this story to kind of like hit that home. And it's like, it's the story of the rabbit. And you probably heard this story so many times from me. And the tortoise. And there's this famous fable that where you have the two and they're going for a race. And the story is the rabbit runs out really fast. He's way ahead of the turtle. And he ends up falling asleep. And the turtle comes along. He's just slow and steady wins the race. Slow and steady wins the race. He's not worried what the rabbit's doing. He doesn't care. He's just focused on the process and the practice. One foot in front of the other. Keep going and keep going. And, as the story goes, he ends up winning the race. And I tell people, when they're like, hey, I need to get a result. I'm like, awesome. We can do that there. But the way that we're going to go about this is much different.
Right.
Okay? Because you're going to have to do this for the rest of your life. There's two skills. There's getting to that point in the result point and keeping that point in the result point, right? And they both lend to slow and steady wins the race.
Right.
Okay? Because once you get a result, it's like that, what movie is it? I think it was like Dude, Where's My Car? When they're in the drive-thru and they're like, and then, and he gives the order and the woman on the end of the drive-thru is like, and then, and he's like, and then I'll take a Coke. And she's like, and then, and that's how I feel that like our practice is. It has to, you're like, okay, great. You did it today. Okay, well, and then what's the next thing? Oh, well, I'll have to do that tomorrow again. Right? Yeah. It's a constant practice. It's better a lot of times to go slow like a turtle so that you can actually learn and breathe and internalize and figure out, step by step rather than rushing through to get this thing. And then you stop and you're burnt out.
Right.
And if that's the one thing that clients take from, what we teach them, it's like, just be a turtle. Yeah. You'll get there.
Yeah, and I think the old way of fitness is very good at selling the rabbit, right? And selling that result. We want to rebrand it to, instead of thinking about the result, think about like what happens then, like what happens after you get the result. Like, and that's more what we're focused on.
Yeah. So if we can kind of put this in a neat little thing, it's like, okay, your movement practice over time, this is what it looks like, turns into a habit.
Mm-hmm.
Habits happen where like neurological function drops and you don't have to think about things so much. You just kind of like start to do them. So if you do yoga every day, guess what? After a certain amount of days or wherever, it's different for everybody. There's research back with it, but it's just like you have to keep going. It doesn't matter if it's 21 days. Oh, I got to 22, I stopped. No, you just keep going. Or I'm not quite there yet. You have to go a little further. It turns into habit. So practices done over time turn into habits. Habits over time turn into skills. And when we practice and have our movement practice, we're building these skills so that we're able to do it for the rest of our life again and again.
Right.
Consistency over time. And I think that's, what the turtle exemplifies. That just keep plodding along.
Yeah, just keep going. No matter what.
Mm.
Just keep going. Keep doing it. Keep showing up.